A man wakes up from a 120-year hibernation to find that the spaceship, which should be full of 5,000 people, has only him as the sole survivor. More terrifying is that the spaceship still has a 90-year journey to the destination. This means he will age alone in endless loneliness until death. Until he discovered a beautiful woman who was asleep, a devilish thought arose in his heart. Is it better to rot alone or to destroy her life yourself? Come save yourself. The story takes place on a starship named Avalon, which is carrying 5,000 passengers and 258 crew members toward the new home planet, Home 2. This is a 120-year journey, and everyone is in deep sleep. However, an accident occurred. The spacecraft passed through a dense asteroid belt, and despite the shield system operating at full capacity, but a huge meteorite still hit the hull hard, causing a series of chain failures. The spacecraft's automatic repair system started working, but a fatal error had already been made. A hibernation chamber was accidentally activated. Passenger Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer, was awakened early. A gentle system voice told him, "Welcome back. 4 months remain until arrival. Please enjoy the luxurious facilities on the spaceship." Jim was full of excitement. He put on his new clothes and could not wait to meet new friends. As he stepped into the vast central hall, the scene before him left him frozen with cold fear. The entire hall was empty. He asked the information desk for help and wanted to speak to a real person, but was directed to a service counter that was empty. He asked to see the captain and came to the outside of the bridge, only to find that even the core crew were still asleep. A sinister feeling came over him. He rushed to the observation deck to check the navigation data. The cold numbers on the screen shattered all his fantasies 90 years away from arrival. He will be trapped in this flying cage, spending the rest of his life alone. The last hope is to send a distress signal to Earth, but the system indicates that it will take 55 years to receive a response. Jim completely broke down. In endless despair, he found the spaceship's bar and a person. Barman Arthur is polite, but his mechanical movements reveal his identity, a robot. In the coming year, Arthur became Jim's only confidant. Jim tried to fix the hibernation chamber, failed. Tried to enter the crew area, failed. He started indulging himself, putting on a high-end spacesuit, enjoying the basketball court, cinema, and luxury restaurant. But after this brief carnival comes a deeper emptiness and loneliness. One day, he put on his spacesuit and went on a spacewalk. The vast universe, the dazzling starry sky. He is the only one in the entire universe who is awake and appreciating this magnificent humanity. But this ultimate beauty only highlights his ultimate loneliness. He turned off his magnetic boots and floated in zero gravity. Despair consumed him. He even wanted to open the airlock and end this absurd situation. Just when he was on the verge of breaking down, a figure entered his vision. In the sleep chamber, a woman named Aurora was quietly sleeping like a princess in a fairy tale. Jim was crazy about checking her information, watching her interview videos and reading the articles she wrote. She is a writer, humorous, smart, and full of energy. Jim is hopelessly in love with this unattainable illusion. A terrifying thought began to swirl in his mind. Wake her up. He confided in Arthur his struggle. If he awakened her, it would be sentencing her to death, trapping her with himself here. This is murder, the most selfish crime in the world. He once gave up, but the torment of loneliness grew increasingly severe. Finally, on another desperate night, he made his choice. He came to the cryo chamber of Aurora and manually hacked the system. With the alarm sound, Aurora was awakened. Jim, like a criminal, retreated back to his room. Soon after, he pretended to meet by chance, appearing in front of Aurora, who was also panicking. He told her that, like her, he had also been awakened due to a dormancy chamber failure, and they were the only two survivors. Aurora experienced the same crash and despair, while Jim played the role of comforter and companion. He was filled with guilt, and he warned Arthur not to tell Aurora that it was he who had awakened her. The world of two people is much warmer than the world of one. They eat together, take walks, watch movies, and play basketball. Jim shares his life with Aurora, a craftsman who longs to prove himself in the new world. Aurora opened her heart. She came here to write a great story, becoming the first journalist to travel between Earth and the new home. Love quietly blossoms in daily life. Jim puts on his spacesuit with Aurora and takes a walk in the sea of stars. This time, he finally has someone to share this magnificent moment with. They turn off their magnetic boots and embrace kissing in space. They fell in love like any other couple on Earth, living a sweet life together. Jim even made a ring from scrap materials, preparing to propose to Aurora on her birthday. However, this beautiful bubble was burst by a careless word from Robot Arthur.
They float together in space. They come back inside and immediately.
When Jim returned with the ring, he was met with Aurora's fearful and hateful gaze. "What have you done to me?" She backed away in fear, as if looking at a devil. Truth is a sharp knife that pierces through the disguise of love. He stole her life and killed her future. She violently beat him with all her strength to release her despair and anger. Jim's apology and declaration of love sounded utterly insincere and disgusting to Aurora. Love could not be an excuse for killing a life. The crisis of the spaceship broke out fully as the two were at an ice point. The elevator lost control, the food machine failed, and various alarms sounded one after another. What was more bizarre was that the third person woke up. Deck Officer Gus, his cryo pod also had a malfunction. As a senior crew member, Gus immediately realized that the consecutive failures of the 3 hibernation chambers were no coincidence. The spaceship must have a big problem. He took the 2 into the cockpit and found the system experiencing an avalanche-like collapse. If the initial fault point was not found and repaired, the entire ship would be destroyed. However, the after effects of sleep overwhelmed Gus, who coughed up blood and fell down, his life rapidly fading away. He handed his ID bracelet to Jim before dying, entrusting the task of repairing the spaceship and saving everyone to this couple still filled with mutual hatred. Gus had just died when the spaceship sounded the highest level red alarm. The gravity system failed, and the water in the pool instantly turned into a huge water ball, trapping Aurora inside and nearly drowning her. In the face of crisis, they had no choice but to cooperate. Following the clues left by Gus, they investigated step by step, finally found the hole caused by the meteorite that hit 2 years ago in the power plant. It damaged the reactor control computer. They replaced the parts, but the reactor's overheating procedure could not be stopped. The only way is to manually open the exhaust valve from the outside. This means someone must wear a spacesuit and risk being sprayed by high-temperature molten material to carry out a suicide mission. Jim stood up without hesitation. This was his chance to atone. At the airlock, Aurora adjusted his gear and tearfully said to him, "Come back. I can't live alone here without you." Jim came out of the cabin. He had to use his body to force the exhaust valve open, allowing Aurora to complete the exhaust inside the cabin. Aurora cried and refused to carry out the order. She didn't want him to die, but Jim told her they had to save the people on the ship. Finally, Aurora pressed the button. A scorching torrent burst out, and the reactor was saved. But the huge impact broke Jim's safety rope, sending him into the endless dark space. Aurora rushed out in her spacesuit without hesitation to save him, grabbing his safety rope and pulling him back to the medical chamber. But the system showed that Jim was dead. At the last moment, Aurora remembered Gus's ID bracelet. She used her highest authority to forcibly initiate all resuscitation procedures in the medical chamber. A miracle happened. Jim came back to life, experiencing life and death. Aurora finally forgave him. Later, Jim found that the medical chamber could be used as a hibernation chamber. He gave this chance of rebirth to Aurora, allowing her to complete her dream and reach a new world. But this time, Aurora chose to stay. She chose to spend the rest of her life with the man who had once destroyed her life and then saved it with his own. 88 years later, the Avalon arrived at its destination. When the crew awoke, they were no longer met with cold metal corridors. It is a world full of plants and full of vitality. The recording left by Aurora tells the unique love story of them on this lonely planet.